And when we do get started, we'll be talking about the Louvre break-in. I'll be talking about the new prime minister in Japan, and I will be talking a little bit about I don't know, you could call it philosophy, but I'm not that smart to call it philosophy myself. But I don't know, way of living. So those are the things we're going to talk about today.
Business owner, educator, and lifelong observer of politics and economics, making sense of complex issues.
While we're waiting, let's talk about the Louvre. It's uh, Tina Maria's here. That's the first name I recognized that I know. So we are starting to get some of our regulars here. Okay. So what I might do is start talking about the Louvre and wait for people to drop in and um, good evening, and then I might come back to it again later in the live. But the Louvre is really interesting to me, and this is going to be people are thinking, how can you do this? You can try. The Louvre, Notre Dame, Hyundai. What do they all have in common? Labor contracts. Or, more precisely, the modern consumption of labor is, for me, the overarching fault with these things. So what's going on here? And let me go into a little bit of detail. Okay. Someone's popped a question in there, so I'll just quickly have a look at that. Do you think reform will win? Are you talking about Japan? None of them have solid state batteries. That's great. I like that. Okay. UK. Oh, Reform Party in the UK. Look, I have no idea. I have no idea about UK politics at all. Like, not at all. I did see Boris today talking about how he said, yes, maybe we went a little bit overboard in COVID. Like, you think? I was over here in Japan during COVID. And all my regular people know this. And although Japan famously closed off really early and was really strict about it, we lived normally, as close to normal as you can get. Well, you guys from Australia, hi China Marina, from Australia to everywhere, shut your whole countries down. We couldn't understand it. We're over here in Japan. We're still doing everything. We're still going shopping, going to events. The only thing that we lost was restaurants and bars. They were closed. And they were actually open. They were allowed to stay open until about 7 p.m. And then they were closed. And we all wore masks. We just did it. It wasn't a philosophy. It wasn't a political statement. It was a way of having everything stay as normal as possible. I saw a guy today on TikTok say this. I'm going way off what I was about to talk about. I saw a guy on TikTok today, and I've seen the same version of this person a couple of times. I just went to the airport and it's 2025 and I can't believe the number of people that are wearing masks. As if it's, you know, something they've been doing forever and they're never going to stop. And he said, this guy was particularly funny because he said, these people haven't breathed fresh air for 5 years. Like, what? You're a moron. Um, Obviously, if you go to an airport and you're surprised to see people wearing masks, you don't travel much. And if you go to the airport and you see people wearing masks and you're surprised, you haven't been to Asia, right? Because we are advised to wear masks on the plane, not just because of bird flu, influenza, COVID, and all those things, but because airplane air is not good. It's a good idea to wear a mask on a plane. It's actually like wearing, what do they say? You should wear those socks so that you don't have trouble with your veins and legs and things at my age. Um, It's like that. It's good for you. So if you go to the airport and you're surprised that people are wearing masks, then you're late to the latest health craze because that's what we're advised to do. Anyway, and that they haven't had fresh air for 5 years. Well, spare a thought for nurses and surgeons and medical staff that wear masks 8, 10 hours a day for 20, 30 years of their careers. You know, it's so silly. If anyone's forever mask, then there's the other side is that's forever no mask. I went to the I went to my GP yesterday. If I don't, I was thinking about that. I don't know what you guys in America call a visit to your doctor. So in Australia, they say I went to my GP, and in Japan, they actually say I went to the hospital because the word in Japanese for even your local clinic is hospital. But anyway, so I went to my GP, and everyone in the surgery clinic was wearing a mask, except me. And that's fine. You don't have to wear a mask. And I wish it was a yearly checkup. I'm there all the time. Oh, it's a bit noisy outside. Can you hear that? We have we have local elections coming up, so they all drive around in their vans with loudspeakers. Just they don't say what they're into. They just tell you their name and remember their name. So I went to the doctor, and everyone's wearing masks, but they're all in their 70s and 80s and 90s. It's Japan. So it's good that they're wearing masks because at the doctor's surgery, it's full of people that have something wrong, including myself to a degree. So I should wear a mask, especially when I'm in the hospital, but I don't like wearing masks, so I don't bother. But everyone else should. They should, especially at that age. So, the people that are forever no mask, you need to get over yourself. There's very good reasons to wear masks. I thought you were British. No, I'm Australian. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the comments, and then I'll go back to the Louvre. Oh, good. We've got some people in here now. Excellent. Okay, if you haven't followed, go ahead and follow. And if anyone wants to donate, go to my PayPal and donate. And sorry, I couldn't answer your reform question about the UK politics. I just don't look. I watch the BBC every day. That's my go-to news channel. And I just don't follow UK politics. So I can't make any informed opinion on that. And I've got, this is the classic, I always get this comment, masks don't work. That's not the point, right? It's not the point. So when I said to you, maybe you weren't here, John, but Japan didn't lock down. Schools were open. Our schools closed for 3 weeks. And then everything was open again because you know what? The government said, hey, everybody wear masks. And everyone went, okay. And they said, if you're going to do that, we'll just open everything up again. Everything was open. Except restaurants and bars where people had to take their masks off to consume. Right? It doesn't matter whether they worked or not. Welcome to Japan. Japan is all about checking boxes, not about whether anything works or not. I don't care whether masks work or not. I wore my mask every day when I went outside so that I could go outside. Right? It's not mind control. It's just, I want to go outside, so I put clothes on. Right? If I go outside with no clothes on, they won't let me go outside. The mask was just one more item of clothing that I put on. And to the point about whether masks work or not, you're so silly. Of course masks work. The only time they don't work is when you take them off and touch them and put them back on again. So in Japan, we have a lot of allergies, and the masks help them um, filter out the massive amounts of pollen in the air that I can feel. I can feel the pollen in my eyes and in my nose. I don't have allergies. And yet, during allergy season, I get a runny nose because I notice it. And that's why when you come to Asia, especially Japan, you'll see a lot of people wearing masks. It's to help them with their allergies. So you go tell them that it doesn't work. Silly people. It's been proven. Yeah. Okay, John. Then you don't wear a mask then. Don't see, that's the point. If you believe that, it's because you want to believe that. So don't wear a mask. But let the other people wear a mask. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay. So let's get on. Okay. So, Gino, I'm going to talk about Sanae later because we're on first name basis. But I want to get onto this Louvre thing before I forget it because it's so funny. And the mask conversations put me in the mood for a bit of humor. So, okay. I'll get back to what I was saying. Yeah, exactly, Magenta. I was thinking that and didn't bother saying it because that guy has heard that a million times. Exactly. Okay. So, the Louvre Museum, right? We all know the story now. These guys backed up what a type of cherry picker, a type of ladder on a truck, right? They back it up, they climb up, they smash the windows, they go in, they take the jewels, they drop one outside, and they run off and jump on their scooters and take off. Now, at the first, the news was that professional. They must have been professional. And then the later news was they probably weren't professional. And I was already at, and I don't know if I'm wrong, but I'm using my Occam's razor. But I'll tell you a couple of the other theories that are coming out. But I'll give you my theory. Opportunity. It was merely a crime of opportunity. Construction was going on, renovations were being done, and this is what I think happened at Notre Dame. I think this is also what happened at the Hyundai plant. That when you have the type of employment contracts that we have now, cyclical, casual, even daily, we have a type of employment now that we don't even know who works for who. And I can see it in everything in my daily life. When I talk to people in call centers or when I go into a store, oftentimes none of those employees are employees. They belong to some other company, and then even that company just got them that day. So this is my point. There's all this construction going on at the Louvre. It's been outsourced to the lowest bidder. The lowest bidder is not even a real corporation. They're just some entity that's made up, and they actually employ other companies to do work. And then those other companies actually employ subcontractors, and then those subcontractors are self-employed, and they just pick people up off the street when they need extra work. So you've got, in my humble opinion, dozens of people wandering around the Louvre with badges on, indicating that they're supposed to be there, and nobody knows who the heck they are. Nobody knows each other. There's no foreman. There's no oversight. Yeah, there's probably a security guard, but he works for a subsidiary of a subsidiary of a subsidiary. Do you get my point? Nobody knows anything anymore. No one's employed by the Louvre. So these guys rock up, nothing out of sorts, because they've probably got their badges, they've got their high vis which is, what workers wear, so that for safety and so forth, helmets and you know all the gear that they have to make them look official. Go up to a window, smash it, and go in. Nobody's going to question that. I don't know who they are. Nobody knows whether they're supposed to be there or not. They're not going to question it. Guys walk in, grab the stuff, walk out. I'm so cynical. I'm so cynical that I believe that even if you saw a worker on a ladder smashing a window at the Louvre in broad daylight, you'd probably think, oh, they're replacing the windows, right? So this is my point, that this is what happened at the Louvre. This is what happened at Notre Dame. Did anyone see the Notre Dame result? The Notre Dame result was that it actually could very well have been started by a cigarette. Someone wrote that as a joke in one of my comments, but it's like, no, that was actually a true theory, that it could have been caused by a cigarette that wasn't extinguished properly. It could have been a short circuit in some equipment. And my theory about the Louvre applies exactly to the Notre Dame as well. Nobody works for them. They're all subcontracted out to multiple corporations. Nobody knows anything. And this is how you get cheap labor. So this is what needs to be fixed globally, at least with labor, is to bring back proper contracts and proper employment. If you work for someone, you work for them. And that's what happened at Hyundai as well. Even that whole plant, which is a Hyundai plant, is not a Hyundai plant. It's a subsidiary. And they employed subsidiaries to build it. And those subsidiaries employed subcontractors. And those subcontractors employed random people. And those random people didn't get the right visas. And then you end up with that situation. You lose a whole investment because of the way that labor is consumed in the market these days. And that's my point about that. That's how all those things are connected. They're connected because we've diluted what it means to be an employee. We've diluted employment. And labor is like a disposable asset. I mean, I've worked for a couple of companies where I had 4 or 5 badges for different corporations that I got subcontracted out to. I look like I'm supposed to be there. Actually, I got to go into airports and lounges and everything with my photocopied badges on. Ridiculous. Anyway, so the other theory, so just to keep going with the Louvre a little bit more, the other theory is that one is more serious, one is really cute. So stick around. Let's go with the serious one. So the serious one is that these guys were going in there. They are a gang or a group, and they scoped it out. They checked it out. They watched what was going on. They saw that they had an opportunity to do this. It was huge risk, but they knew what they were going for, and they went in and grabbed them and got away. They're either going to break them up and try to sell them that way, or, and the same person who said that is actually highly unlikely, because it's such a high risk just to break up some random rubies and diamonds and emeralds. You could just go and rob a local jewelry store if you wanted to do that. You wouldn't try to break into the Louvre. Although I think maybe that's why they did that, because it was just easier. But this guy said that they may actually be holding them for ransom. That might be there. And for me, with the Occam's razor in hand, I think that sounds pretty reasonable, that the French government will actually offer a reward for the safe return of these jewels, and some third party, I think they call them a fence, will be in contact with the government, be in contact with the thieves, and negotiate a return of the jewels for the reward. Because imagine trying to sell that stuff. So that's one theory. And now the cute theory. The cute theory. I just heard this. The cute theory is that a princess, this is for real. I saw this on TikTok. Therefore, it must be real. A princess, not world famous, but a princess nonetheless, wanted them. And that, oh, this is the best. And so it's the buyer theory. There was a buyer that wants them. And they were, okay, so let me see if I can get this straight. This is really good. There's a buyer that wants them, and she's a princess. And she wants those jewels because they belong to princesses and so forth. So she wants them. And so 10 years ago, yes, 10 years ago, all of Paris apparently was in discussions about strengthening the windows in some of their valuable spaces like the Louvre. And that they decided against it because it might mess with the structural integrity of the building. This person suggests that this princess or this buyer was sponsoring the people to be opposed to the strengthening of the windows so that this robbery could take place 10 years later. And so with the windows still being easily penetrable, they were able to scale the side of the building with their ladder, go in there, break the window, get in, steal the jewels, and give them to the princess who had been longing for them, which is just the cutest. I love that theory. But with my Occam's razor in hand, I'm going to put that one as the least likely. I hope it's true. Oh, I hope that's true. I hope I have to eat my words, and that it is actually some, not world famous princess that wanted the jewels and has been plotting and scheming to get them. And that was the culmination of it. And she is now wearing them and prancing around in her isolated castle somewhere in the jewels of the French crown. So, what do you think about that? But I'm going to go with the, I think it was just opportunity. I just think they did it because they could. Oh, and then there's the Pink Panthers. So that's a good one as well. Although those gentlemen are probably around my age or older. So, okay. All right, I'm looking at my comments. So if you've noticed, and if you're not new here, you've noticed that I'm looking different here, and that's because I'm using TikTok Live Studio on my PC. And I have my mic here, which is the same mic that I plug into my phone usually, but you can't see it. I've chosen to do Live Studio because I can actually look at the camera. Actually, I realize now the camera is a little bit off. There. I can look at the camera and look at my comments at the same time, and I don't have to, when I'm on the phone, I have to kind of look up close and see. But with my monitor behind the camera, I'm looking straight at them, so it's a much better setup. I've got my keyboard, I've got my mouse, and I've got my phone free if I need to look up anything. So it's just a better setup. Hopefully it looks better and sounds better as well. Okay. So we now have 43 people in here, and we've finished talking about the Louvre. You will see that in the clips that I make, and it will be in there, those theories. Let's see what turns out to be true. I'm inclined to go with the ransom idea. That sounds feasible. And I think the princess idea is my favorite. Okay. Yorks says, why does the government want to erase history? Well, I mean, history is the history of erasing history. I don't know what government you're talking about in particular, but all empires, all throughout history, history has been erased. Okay, yeah, so it is like that, Tina Maria, outsourcing everything, and that's my point. Thank you, Gina. It is. I think it's a huge problem for labor, and I think it comes into my whole thing about social mobility and social malaise. When you don't have security in employment, and when you don't have social mobility, you end up with malaise, and that's when Ava has joined. Ava is a super fan. And that's why we end up with some of the social problems that we have. I think a lot of it stems from the way that we treat labor. I think if we use the Louvre as an example, there should have been at least a team, because you couldn't have just one person, a team of 4-person oversight, a group of people that were there daily, that knew who was supposed to be there and who wasn't, and what was, more importantly, what was supposed to be happening. So when a truck backed up to the side of the building, there was a knowledgeable person there with authority to know whether that was supposed to be happening or not. Because I know that if I walk past the Louvre Museum and there's I'll give you an example. The destruction of the White House that's happening right now, that is, imagine if you walked past and saw that. You would know that, the ballroom is going up, but you would be very confused because you were told that there would not be any demolition. So, somebody knows what's supposed to be happening, but we don't. And that's why you do need a foreman, a 4-person, or somebody there, a union or something to oversee the work that's being done on any site, let alone the Louvre Museum or Notre Dame. It's ridiculous. Okay, so let's move on to Japan. So I want to I have to uncross my legs, and then when I do, I kick the camera stand. So there we go. Let's move on to Japan, where we have a new prime minister, the first female prime minister in Japan. In our male-dominated society, Japan, I think, ranks 114 out of 143. I'm not sure, but it's something like that with regard to female participation in politics and corporate existence. There's just not many women. And so it is huge, and it is comparable to sorry, I just got thrown there. Somebody called me handsome. It is comparable to Margaret Thatcher. And she is also, Sanae Takaichi is comparable to Margaret Thatcher. So there's comparisons that are legitimately being made. I want to know if she's carrying a copy of Hayek's book, which I always forget the name of it, what it is. I've actually read it a long time ago. I just can't remember what it's called. But I want to know if she carries that around with her. Of course, the Japanese version. And there's a couple of things I want to talk about with her. First of all, and I don't want to be overly negative, but I just want to put things more in perspective. Sanae Takaichi is being touted as a biker, a heavy metal drummer. You've all heard that, right? That's how she's introduced in the news. I just saw it on the BBC this morning. The new Prime Minister of Japan, a former biker and heavy metal drummer, is the first female prime minister of Japan. Those, of course, are, let's call it literary license, but let's make up a new term, social license, because one, she wasn't a biker. I think you might call them a motorcycle enthusiast. I think a biker is something else. A biker, to me, is someone in a bikie gang. Not someone who, I had a Vespa. I was a mod. This was post-goth. Does that make me a biker? No. So many people laughing right now. No, she's not a biker. She was never a biker. She is in the Parliamentary Motorcycle Enthusiast Club. Yes, that's a thing. Lou is a biker. Lou Esquire. Maybe Lou can tell me. Yeah, I don't know. I grew up in a town that had two very big biker gangs that were often at loggerheads, and so I do know what they do. So I think there's a popular cultural version, and then there's a larger version that includes motorcycle enthusiasts. But I think when you say that the Prime Minister of Japan was a biker, it doesn't mean what you think it means. She rode a motorbike. That's it. I don't think that makes you a biker. Then let's move on to the heavy metal drumming. I'm Deep Purple. Is Deep Purple heavy metal? Or is that heavy rock? Anyway, she was in a cover band at high school. And she was the drummer. And they covered Deep Purple and other bands, not necessarily all heavy metal. So let's put that into context. All Japanese students have to join a club. Right? They all have to. It's voluntary, but it's compulsory. So my daughter doesn't, because she does other stuff. But generally, even when she started high school, she joined nominally the athletics club. But everyone has to join. And then actually all the teachers also have to volunteer to oversee them. They have to volunteer. And so you can get a volleyball team that's coached by a teacher who's never played volleyball in their lives, but now they're the volleyball coach. That's just, it's part of why Japan doesn't have delinquency. The kids are too busy to be delinquent. They're too busy to be bored. It's a good thing. But so what runs through my head is that, and I don't know if this is true, I am making this up, but this is a usual case. A girl goes to high school. She's been in the brass band at junior high school, because that's also compulsory too, to join a club there. And then she goes to high school and she joins in with some musical enthusiasts in the music club, and everybody in the music club joins a band. They make a band. And it doesn't matter what you can do or can't do. I was the singer in a band at university in Japan. I was the singer. I can't sing. So you join a club and you find people who aren't in a band, because everybody has to be in a band, and you put those four people together and you say, right, we've got a bass player and a guitarist and a singer, we need a drummer. Sanae, what do? I played the violin Okay, you're the drummer. And then she learns drums. I mean, I'm making this up. But my point is, don't get excited that she's this hip, cool biker, heavy metal drummer chick, because she ain't that. This is the woman, and I'm just telling you, I'm not criticizing it. I'm just telling you, these are the things she said. No gay marriage. That's not a thing. It's not going to happen, and it's bad for society. Bad for traditional family values. That's Sanae Takaichi. Women cannot keep their maiden name after marriage. In Japan, that is the law. They've been debating it for about 20 years, whether to change it. They came close a couple of times. She's against it. If a woman marries a man, she must take the male family name. That's law. And she wants to keep that law. She doesn't want to change that. The reason some women want to change that in Japan, because after divorce, it's very difficult to go and then change your name and get married. You have to. There's a literal waiting period for you before you can remarry, because you cannot change your name. And this is why women in Japan. It's not that women in Japan necessarily want to keep their maiden name. They just, if they, things happen. And so they want that option, but they can't. And she's happy with them to not have that option. So that's that. She wants to revise Article 9 of the Pacifist Constitution that says Japan will not wage war on countries. That is, they won't do offensive things. So that's why Japan never went to Iraq and Afghanistan and all those things, because they couldn't. They sent support, they sent money, they did logistics, but they can't actually fight abroad. She wants to change the defense forces from the defense forces to the Army, Navy, and Air Force, which actually I agree with. So there you go. There's something. And then what else does she... She's conservative. Like very, 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 very conservative. Oh, Deanna's here. Hi, Deanna. How are you? I'm very surprised to see you, but I'm glad you're here, and I hope you enjoy the live. So, fiscally, she is happy to continue with Abenomics, which, there's some good stuff in there. Not good stuff, but, when you think of conservatives in the US, they're different to conservatives in Japan, because Japanese conservatives are pro-big government. They're pro-big government spending. So expect the debt to continue. Expect Japanese politicians to continue making money from concrete, which is a thing. You'll have to look that up. So she has become prime minister, and then her party, this might be a little bit boring. I'll try to get through it a little bit quickly. Her party is called the LDP, the Liberal Democratic Party. None of those words are in the correct use of the correct meaning, but they're called the Liberal Democratic Party. And their junior partner is called Komeito. And Komeito is basically, just for simplification, it's like a cult. It's a Buddhist religious sect with a political arm. But they're pacifist, they're conservative, but they're pacifist, and they've been in partnership with the LDP for 26 years, and that always their partnership with them, Komeito have very strong loyal support, not big, not massive support, but loyal support. And so that they always help the LDP get over the line when they're not quite polling as good as possible. But they quit. And they quit the partnership after 26 years because they chose her. Because she is too conservative for them. And the reason the LDP chose her is because they're concerned about the rising far-right parties in Japan that are pulling a lot of their voters. So that's to appeal to them. So they set out looking for a new partner, and they have just agreed to partner with Ishin no Kai, which is another party that is only like 10, 15 years old. And this party is actually based where I live and was initially created to be in opposition to, not opposition just as is in voting, but as a philosophical opposition to moneyed political power, to the corruption and what's it called? This is, you guys see me do this every week. When seats are handed down by generation, like Takaichi beat out the son of a prime minister. Like these, in politics in Japan, is all about generational inheritance. So anyway, this party was created to oppose all that, and it's really, really surprising that they're joining with the LDP almost like their sworn enemy. They're, everyone's conservative in Japan, but just, Ishin no Kai is opposed to a lot of what the LDP have been accused of doing. However, the other main reason that that party was formed was to try and get Osaka, or in English, Osaka, to become a metropolis like Tokyo. So this is the technical side of it. Tokyo is a city inside Tokyo, right? It's like, I don't know what it's like actually, but I was going to try and use Manhattan, but I won't do that. So, Tokyo Station, Tokyo is a city inside, and then there are all these other cities, Shibuya, Shinjuku, Ikebukuro. These are all different cities. And so they put them all together into one big thing and called it Tokyo. Osaka is different. Osaka is the center where there's a city called Osaka, and the surrounding rest of the city is all different cities, and they make up the prefecture, the kind of the state of Osaka. And what this party wants to do is to get rid of that duplication and just make it one huge metropolis, which is, I think, a good idea because it cuts the number of politicians for a start, and it really is one massive city. And then that would become something equivalent to what Tokyo is. It's probably a good move. So that's what they want. And I see them joining with the LDP as maybe possibly getting support for that happening in Osaka, because they're not going to get any political seats or ministries or anything, portfolios, but they might just get enough credibility to run that vote in Osaka again, because it's come really close and they've just lost out on getting that created so that Osaka becomes that metropolis. So being part of the national government could help them get that achieved. Okay. So that is, what have I missed out on? Let me have a quick look here on my notes about Sanae, because we're on first name basis. Oh yeah, this is a good one. So if you don't know about this, Japan has had trouble creating an heir to the throne. So it is only male succession in Japan. There's no within the constitution, within the rules of the monarchy, there's no space for a female to become empress, right? Even though Japan's had them, they got rid of that. And so some politicians have been trying to get that changed so that a princess could inherit it and become, emperor of Japan. But the hardliners, the very, very far right conservatives don't want any of that. And Takaichi agrees with them. She does not want to give a female the opportunity to become emperor of Japan. So that's something she believes in. What else? Oh, yeah, and of course, don't even need to say this, but she supports tighter immigration controls. Actually, she just created, what is this called? This is funny for me, but may not be funny for you guys. Let me see if I can. She has created a new cabinet portfolio for a coexistent society with foreigners. Now, we're all cynical when we hear things like that. Usually means the opposite, doesn't it? Right? The Environmental Protection Agency doesn't protect the environment, that kind of thing. So I'm thinking, this sounds ominous. Yes, she's creating a new portfolio for a coexistent society with foreigners. Although she has chosen an American-born Japanese, so a Japanese person that was born in the US, to an American father, I think, to head it. So it'll be interesting. But, I think it's possibly good. I'll have to find out more details. I just literally read that before I came live here today. So I don't know what that's going to mean. But hopefully, and I really, really do hope this means that they will put some money into language education centers, cultural experiences, engaging with the foreign community in Japan so that they can integrate into society a bit better. I think that is something that Japan needs, and I think that's what she will be looking at doing. She may be opposed to immigration, but she can't actually, stop it because it's literally needed. And the funny thing about that for me is that a lot of labor in Japan is tied up. What do we call it? What do we call it when people are not working? When they're working less than they could be, or doing roles lower than they could be. Underemployed. There's a lot of underemployed in Japan, and they're being held up in companies that are almost zombie companies. They don't run at a loss, but they don't make any money. They kind of just get by, and there's a lot of labor there. And the reforms that were required to do that would result in a lot of pain, and the LDP has never been wanting to do that because it could be just enough pain to cost them an election. So Japan has to import workers. It's as simple as that. She can't stop that. She may be against it, but she can't stop it. So hopefully she will just possibly make it easier for them. So yeah, I mean, I did that. I did language courses when I came here through NPOs, but they didn't really get much government support. Yes. Do you plan on staying in Japan indefinitely? When you earn yen, you don't plan to stay in Japan indefinitely. You just do. It used to be a good thing. Uh, okay. No wonder yeah, no wonder they don't want to have kids. Exactly. I mean, there's a whole. I've talked about that at length before about, especially why Japanese women, because that the men want to have kids, the men want to get married. It's the women. The women don't want to be wives, and the women don't want to have kids. On the whole, basically. Oh, you don't get the underperforming companies. Okay, so in Japan, there's a lot of government contracts, and so the take for example a concrete company. So you might have 10 concrete companies, and they're all pretty much the same, and they all bid for contracts. And what they do is they collude to take turns. So there'll be a government contract to build, to paste some concrete on the side of a mountain. That happens a lot. And they'll take turns putting in bids and not purposefully under bid each other. They'll agree to who's going to get the contract this time. And it's very socialist. It's very socialist. But it's just, then that's just one aspect of it. There's a lot of things where they're traditional family businesses that, when I say that, they've been doing it for 50, 60, maybe 80 years. And so they've, to understand it really well, you have to think of a company like Toyota doesn't make anything. It's just a brand. It assembles pieces that it purchases elsewhere. And so they're all made by companies. So right down to all the little screws, they all come from separate companies. And so, some of them now they're closing down at phenomenal rates. But it's been a long drawn out process. And thousands and thousands of them close every year because they don't have contracts, and they don't have customers, and they don't have anyone to take over for them. Maybe I should do something about this at some stage. I might do that. My brain's not ready to do that now. Okay. I think that's enough about Japan. Every time I do the Japan stuff, I get comments from people in Japan mostly in Japan, giving me grief about being down on Japan, which I'm not. I'm just critical. So, anyway, let's give Japan a break. So we talked about the Louvre and we talked about Japan. What was next? I think. Okay. Right. The protests. Oh my goodness. The number of people that don't understand what a protest is. I even had someone in comments say, I voted Democrat. Trump won. I'm not going to the No Kings March. Like, okay, that makes no sense at all. That's not what the protest isn't a protest against the result. I think that's what some people mistakenly think, that January 6th was a protest and riot against the result. The No Kings demonstrations are a protest against policy. You can even vote for that government and protest the policies. There's nothing wrong with that. That is not hypocritical. Oh, thank you, Abe. I like Ava's comment. Do they know you're critical of all countries? Yeah, thank you. Exactly. But yeah, you know, I I've been to so many protests and I've been on the receiving end of protests. And it's not about the party. It's not about the leader. It's about the policies. It's about, I mean, the No Kings, the name, whatever, right? Whatever the name, it doesn't matter. It's the protest. The protest has a point. One of the points of a protest is to show people that there is literal opposition to the government's policies. Because if you watch the media, and I've noticed that in the last 6 months, the media has become less and less critical of the government. I've just noticed that in my media. And that global leaders have become less and less critical in open of Trump and the administration. So what do protests do? They show the country and they show the world that there is opposition inside. They are superseding the media that has a blackout, seemingly, on opposition voices. So you can see that. That's one purpose. The other purpose is to put fear into the government and to show them that this is unacceptable and you are being warned that at the next election, the numbers are going to look like this. That's what protests do. They tell the government that there's people here that are against you. All your yes men that surround you don't include us. That's what protests do. And they also offer, a kind of psychological boost to the opposition because other people see other people and they find that they have things in common and they can network and join together. There was another point that I've completely lost out of my brain. If I go back to my comments, because as I'm saying stuff, I'm reading. Okay, so Deanna says, what do they accomplish? So they accomplish those things. They show that there is opposition, and it gives momentum to that opposition, and there was another point that I've completely lost out of my brain, and it was why I went to marches. Oh, to meet girls. No, it was to feel like you're doing something and not just sitting at home shaking your head, that you could be part of something. There was something else that I've lost. Okay. Yeah, I'm reading my comments. You guys are hilarious. Yeah. I wish I could remember the other point anyway, I'll move on. It'll bug me now that I can't remember it. But yeah, Deanna, exactly. People are always unhappy, but you don't always get protests. So I've told you guys before about how unions in Australia used to call for a strike, and then the nurses would be like, "Yeah, we're annoyed because the government won't provide something, either wage increases or whatever, for nurses." And the nurses would go, "We're going to go on strike." And then the gas fitters will be like, "Well, we're going to go support the nurses." And the teachers will be like, "Well, if you guys are going, we're going." And then, that momentum forces the government to think about what they're doing. I'm not saying that happened with this. It most certainly didn't. But it does help the opposition to get some momentum, ultimately, I think. And, okay, I think the most basic thing about protests is in the video that I made already, and that's how you get democracy. Like, you don't get a democracy without protesting. That's how they're literally formed. There's a ruler, and the people are ticked off, and they get rid of the ruler, and they put in other people, and then you get a democracy. That's literally how you get it. So, I would, for people that are saying that there's no meaning to them, it's pointless, it doesn't prove anything, it's a waste of time, I would say it's a better use of your disappointment than maybe giving up, maybe turning to other substances to relieve your angst. And so you guys that know me know that that's what I'm always saying, that I really believe that the biggest issue in all of our OECD societies is the lack of social mobility, and that is the real reason we have drug problems and alcohol problems, violence and crime. If you built a better, more egalitarian society, you wouldn't have those things so much. Of course, you'd still have them. They always exist. Under the strictest regimes and the loosest regimes, you're going to have those things. If we use Japan as an example, like I was saying earlier about all the kids go into after-school activities, all of them. It's funded by the school, which is funded by the city, and the teachers volunteer, and the kids don't have any free time. So one of the complaints I had about that philosophically was that the kids don't get the opportunity to develop their personality. And then Japanese society would say, we don't want them to. So when people start developing their personality, then they start buying spray cans and spray painting the sides of trains, right? We don't want kids expressing their individuality and their personalities. We want them to grow up to be good workers. So there's a balance, I think, that's available there. Japan keeps kids occupied. US, Australia, Europe gives our kids too much free time. Somewhere in the middle, little league, boxing, athletics, piano, whatever you want to do, if that's available to you, it's most definitely going to reduce crime. But that doesn't help when you graduate and you go into work and then you're working for 10 years and you're not going up. You're on contract after contract, these cyclical contracts that never see you getting ahead. That leads to depression. And I think that's a big part of it. So all these things are, the cause of social decay. It's not woke, for example. It's not woke. And this is what, if we bring it back to Japan, Sanae Takaichi believes that things like gay marriage and women holding their maiden name in marriage will devalue marriage. No. Society is being devalued by the kind of contracts that workers have to live on, the kind of low wages that they have to get by on, while healthcare and housing and education are unaffordable. If you ask women in Japan why they don't want babies, the first thing they say, the very first thing they say is education in Japan is too expensive. It's true. So, it's not because they're woke. I don't want to have a baby because maybe I like girls is not the answer. The answer is that they can't afford it. Right? Am I wrong? Okay. Yes, I think lots of sports is good. Look, and that coming from a person who is not into sports, and I grew up with the philosophy that one of the reasons, I just thought of something that I used to believe that was really stupid. But anyway, one of the things that I used to believe was that our society is so aggressive and mean because we're so competitive, and competition is bad. I now no longer believe that. But so I never played sports. I never played competitive sports. I didn't like it. But I saw, and I've shared this with people anecdotally, my experience has been in my own family, in my extended family, and in amongst my friends from Australia to Japan and Germany and US and China and other places where I have friends and family. It's very similar. The kids that did sports are doing well. The kids that did after school activities are doing well. The kids that didn't are not doing well. It's pretty simple. Now, that comes down to a lot of things. It comes down to, I don't like that expression or that belief that, if you have books in your house, then you do better. No, it's not the books in the house that makes kids do better. It's the parenting. And if you're good parents, you have books in the house. That's the thing. If you're able to do that, that's one of the things you do. It's not the books that do it, it's the parenting. So we should be focusing on helping parents to do those right things. The parents that don't know what to do, and also the parents that can't do those things. So, I have friends that are very wealthy and didn't do that for their kids. They could have, but they didn't. And now they have problems. And then other people who haven't been so well off and put their kids through sports and they've done well. So, money's not always the excuse. Education and support, the infrastructure has to be there. And yeah, in a very basic sense, it keeps them out of trouble. But it also, I think builds, I used to think, like I said, that it didn't let them develop their own personality. That's what I believed. But when I look at the kids that I know that are, and I know kids at the top level of sports, and they do have personalities, interesting personalities, and good personal philosophies. So, it doesn't mean that they won't develop an interesting personality. And I used to think that, but it's just not true. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, how long have I been ranting? Oh, a long time. Okay, I'm actually going to have to finish soon because I'm going out with one of my right-wing friends for lunch. See, we can all get along. I'm going out with my friend who's a big pro-Trump guy. He's American, and but he's a good guy. He's a good person. He doesn't he doesn't really think about politics very deeply, but and I think there's a lot of that especially on the right now. There's a lot of that people that were never interested in politics really got their moment with Trump. And, when I first met him and I would talk about politics, he would say, let's not talk about politics. And that's like, a lot of these guys used to say this to me when we'd go out, let's not talk about politics. I called it sociology. They called it politics. And so now when we go out, that's the first thing he wants to tell me. Hey, Trump did this, Trump did that. What do you think about that? All the time. So, I tell him he's wrong. But we're still friends. You can be friends.
If you're still here, honestly, you have no idea how much it helps if you subscribe. I'll keep these coming.